Hello, you welcome. This is Moment for Thought. I am Ali Baro. A lot have been said across the Federation, across the global community, perhaps on the corona pandemic, which has affected the life of the individuals, the society, from the community level, and the global village. Fundamentally, the coronavirus has threatened the lives of the people across the globe. But there is one very, very vital issue, which perhaps the people have been talking by the sides, the issue of the economy. And even from the grassroots level of the economy, let me put it that way, individuals, trades and what have you has suffered. National economies of many nations and the global economy generally, is facing a lull. And just recently, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, in his address to the nation on the pandemic, he specifically perhaps talked about the economy. How do we arrest the situation so that the adverse effect on the economy will be at the minimal level that will sustain the operations of the nations generally, let me put it that way. You're welcome to the program. I am Ali Baro. I have eminent Nigerians in the studio to have a discussion on this. I have Malam Dauda Birma, former Minister of Education and one-time presidential aspirant on the platform of erstwhile AMPP. Malam Dauda Birma, a politician through and through, and of course a grassroots man for his Sarkingabas Adamawa. Malam Dauda Birma is officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, OFR. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I have Professor Ife. He's a darling of us here. He's always here in our studio and discussing the economy. As what more to discuss actually on the COVID-19, but to talk about its effect on the economy.
Correct.
Because it is the omnibus of the whole system, so to speak. He is a macroeconomic policy analyst, a lead consultant on private sector development to the ECOWAS and chief economic strategies in the ECOWAS Commission. And these are very few of those international organizations Professor Ife has been consulting for. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me start with Malam Dauda Birma, the elder statesman. You were a minister of the Federal Republic, and as a politician, I describe you too as a grassroots man. The fear from the beginning was that at least the coronavirus should stop at that urban centers where we receive visitors, but it's permeating through the fabrics of the country, and little economic activities are very much in the lull. How do you appreciate the situation? You as a politician and as an educationist, and of course as a grassroots man, you're always with the people. How do you see the situation?
I will open up by saying that the coronavirus has hit me very hard. In that, one of the major casualties has been Malam Abba Kyari, the chief of staff to the president. I've known Malam Abba Kyari for something like 40 years. Though I come from Adamawa, I grew up in Borno, and therefore people of his generation are people who are like my younger brothers.
Yes.
And not only that, in introducing me, you said I was a presidential aspirant. In 2003, I stepped down for General Buhari, and I stepped down for him in 2007. Okay. That is to say, I am intimately associated with his political machinery. Therefore, talking of COVID-19 would be something which brings it very much home. And I would like to open by saying that I send my condolences to the president for this wonderful young man he has lost, and may his soul rest in peace. Now, having said this, you can see that I have personal experience. If it has come that close and hit a person whom we have lost, then I must have been contemplating it from the health point of view, from the educational point of view, and from the political point of view. Now we are talking of COVID-19 and the economy. But as a Minister of Education, I look at what it is doing to education. If you look at your children, they are out of school because of COVID-19. If your lecturers are not going to lecture and your teachers are not going to teach, you have to pay for it eventually by the vacuum you are creating now. Because education is something which is followed 24 hours a day. The mother waiting for her children to come home is going to continue with the process of education. You find mothers saying, have you done your homework? Bring your homework, and things like that. And it means when children have left school and have come home, they have to be educated. Therefore, the effect of COVID-19 on our education is something we are going to reap in the future. We have to brace ourselves. We have to prepare and not to pretend that it is only a health issue. It's an issue which is preventing people from going to school, preventing teachers from meeting their children, preventing lecturers from coming to lecture, and it's something which has enforced social distance, and you cannot teach people or influence people educationally by standing 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet away from them.
Yes.
There is a degree of intimacy in the imparting of education or in the absorption of education. Therefore, COVID-19 has an effect for which we have to prepare.
Yes. I want you to appreciate the issue at hand with COVID-19 and the economy. He said we're going to reap a lot of things in future. Yes. We are coming to presidential.
Well, globally, is a meltdown globally, yes. And most countries are going into recession, and some will be depression. But rather than go through all that, because of interest of time, go through the litany of wars on the global side, I think we could look at Nigeria, very come closer home. There have been predictions, even by IMF, that we may come down with a minus 3.4% growth. But one thing that I need to mention is the order of battle.
The order of battle.
The order of battle. First is we know there was supply shock. Initially, there was supply shock from those countries, China, and that disrupted manufacturing activities because about 80% of our companies, manufacturers here, are dependent on imported raw materials. And the worst part actually is the pharmaceutical industry imports virtually all the active pharmaceutical ingredients that they use. So that is water that they add or starch or thing to compound the tablets and stuff. But it got worse. It wasn't just about the supply shock that translated to traders can't find the goods to import and those manufacturing can't get their raw materials, but they actually started blocking export of medical products, medical facilities, pharmaceutical products. India stopped exporting hydroquinone. Many things were being. So can you imagine that? When has it entered into our calculus that countries can actually stop sending things? But in terms of the order of battle here, in relation to the economy, first is protection of employment. That's the first order. How do we protect employment and prevent redundancies?
Yes.
I know that the legislator, the Federal House of Rep, passed a law immediately saying companies hold the staff as much as you can, or just leave. They can give them 50% of salary, that's okay. And then recoup that from tax rebates. From employment, then the next one is recovery. How do we recover? But for you to say recovery, you have to carry out impact assessment, sectoral impact assessment, to see which sectors have been hit and how they have been hit before you talk about how they're going to recover. I mean, aviation is an obvious suspect. It decimated aviation because their revenue is gone. They are even the cargoes. Where are the cargoes? Where are the passenger traffic? Where is the there's a serious problem. And we have we have a fund that is running 22 aviation airports. Only one is viable. That is Lagos. Lagos carries 58% of the revenue and cross-subsidizes the remaining 21. Only Abuja breaks just even. None of the other ones are viable. They owed over 53 billion. If they turn the screw, all these airlines will go. And they are self-generating and self-IGR, which means they're not getting money from government. So that is problem. Then this third order of battle is, after recovery, you come to growth. How do we now grow the economy after recovery? And then finally, you come to sustainability, because you talked about Economic Sustainability Committee led by the Vice President. You have to follow those order. In that order. And if we have time, we can unpack.
Yes, we well, you know, the issue is multifaceted kind of. Let's go to what Mr. President said. He said, as a result of this pandemic, the world as we know it has changed. The way we interact with each other, conduct our businesses and trade, the way we earn our livelihood will be different, which you've just expounded. To ensure our economy adapts to this new reality, I am directing the Ministers of Industry, Trade and Investment, Communication and Digital Economy, Science and Technology, Transportation, Aviation, Interior, Health, Works and Housing, Labor and Employment, and Education to jointly develop a comprehensive policy for a Nigerian economy functioning with COVID-19. You've heard what Mr. President said, yes.
The crux of the matter is that we are faced with a challenge we have never faced in our lives. The bottom line is that it is an issue of education. Now, he's mentioned the blackmail element of people not supplying us with drugs, not supplying us with chemicals, not supplying us with raw materials for this. These all go down to education. If we have educated ourselves enough to delve into the raw materials that we have, I do not believe China can point a finger at us when it comes to rudimentary materials required for the sustenance of our health system. But have we invested? Let us ask ourselves, in the last 10 years, how much have we invested in education? If we have not invested in education, it does not look after itself. It's not something you wait for when it's sunset, education is closed. When it's sunrise, education is open. Education is a 24-hour business, and we must make sure that we use our forests, we use our farms to cultivate and bring what should be our pharmaceutical raw materials.
We have the National Council for Pharmaceutical Research and Development.
But have we given them attention? They are just a department which we think we give the funds to them
100
to keep
billion
them quiet.
naira has been allocated
to keep
teaching
them quiet.
hospitals and what
Intervention.
So
yes.
you just say what is education and what is associated in the fulcrum of education,
Yes.
so that we now work 24 hours a day to see the effect of our neglect on our health system, our pharmaceutical system. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I had the privilege of going to Bulgaria to see some of our students who went there to study pharmacology. And they told me, on a 4-year program to study pharmacology, They were in the classroom only for 3 years. In the 4th year, they were given jeans, t-shirts, and various implements. They would go out into the bush. It would be them now who would scout for the pharmaceutical raw materials. And they would come in the 4th year. They would be required to manufacture certain drugs and therefore make the country independent and not rely on China or Brazil or any other place to give them raw materials. If you look at it now, we have burnt not less than 70% of the pharmaceutical raw materials that grow in our bushes. Now, we should come back to our senses and now say, let us go to our farms, let's go to our bushes, let us go to our forests, and to bring the raw materials that are required for making us independent of people who we look forward to. Now, when you talk of pharmaceuticals and healthcare sort of things, you say we rely on India. As soon as you telephone India, they say we rely on China. And if the person you rely on is reliant on somebody else, then you have lost it even before you have started.
Yes.
Therefore, what I'm saying is that the president can make this committee much smaller. And he can make either himself or his vice president and his secretary to government members of this committee. And they should work 24 hours a day.
Yes, he went ahead and said the ministers will be supported by the Presidential Advisory Council and Economic Sustainability Committee in executing this mandate. I'm also directing the Minister of Agriculture. You talk about horticulture and water.
Yes.
The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, the National Security Advisor, the Vice Chairman, National Food Security Council, and the Chairman, Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, what we talked about before we come to about the potassium content that we have in the country, initiative to work with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to ensure the impact of this pandemic on our 2020 farming season is minimized. So there is a focus, but because you talk about a kind of multifaceted kind of things and the ministries, and you appreciate these frontline ministries that was lined up by Mr. President?
Yeah, this very, very coordinated action. But remember that there's so many different things happening. We have 3.5 trillion on the table from the CBN, and you know that we've got that. We have funds flowing in. European Union gave us 21 billion. You know, that money coming in. And there are also other public works programs that are targeted. For example, 774 local governments, 1,000 jobs per local government. And this committee, and I think the one good thing actually is to recognize that I'm glad that Vice President was made the chair of this. Because he has 4 years frontline street experience in handling the weakest of the weak. And it, you know, so he's got that feel. He's got that feel, especially when we're targeting employment. So I'm quite happy with that. But I think it's now come to a point where they also have to look at, you know, fiscal and monetary measures that need to kick in and the ways and means. They will look at employment and, you know, how employment intensive measures. That's why all these ministries, key ministries appointed, will have to go and look at some kind of public works program of some sort that will be complemented. And I also like the fact that while the MDAs will enter into the equation with whatever works that they want to do in the framework of the 774,000 jobs that have to be created. The NDE will deal with the personnel costs. So it's streamlined. Now the issues now are, how are we going to deliver? You know, we have frameworks that exist where much of the intervention funds tend to go through the banking sector and get down. But we say that it doesn't reach everybody, particularly the informal sector. The informal sector accounts for 65% of our GDP, between 50% and 65%. And they account for about 92% of the employment. And you know how most of our money are actually not in the banking system.
Yes. Prof,
So
I think
we need delivery framework
yes.
that would actually reach the informal sector.
Yes.
If we are going to quickly ramp up employment.
Yes.
Very, very important.
We're now talking about strategy, actually. The committee is there, and we know the problem, actually, that is happening. I think we're going to have a second discussion, perhaps that will come the following week. We'll continue with this discussion. Thank you, Madam Dauda Birma, for coming. We'll continue with the discussion so that we have a panel here, and you chip in one or two things that could be streamlined so that we attained, do we say the promised land, to reach the promised land towards really making Nigeria stabilize economically. Thank you very much, Professor Kennedy.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, you've heard it all. You're talking about COVID-19 and the economy. What do we need to do as a nation? Which, Mr. President, as they say, you show the light and people will find the way. He's not only showing the light, he's participating in it. And he and Mr. Vice President and all the ministerial committees and what have you. We'll continue with the discussion on the strategy ahead and what we need to do as a nation, particularly these sectoral development. When you talk about education, when you talk about economy, health sector and what have you, what do we need to do? In fact, to nip it in the bud should certain things like this come. The world itself is like life, is dynamic. We'll be back again. I am Aliyu Babaro. Thank you very much. Goodbye.